massive.
So when the whole concept of this deal was we wanted to create like a centralized location for athletes.
Right.
And so we could put a building that had all the resources, support services for the kids.
Right.
You know? And so this is kind of the centerpiece. Everything on that side is all Olympic sports.
Okay.
All their coaches' offices, locker rooms,
Right.
treatment area on that side. Everything on that side is all football. So same deal, coaches' offices, meeting rooms, locker room, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then centered here is obviously the weight room, we call it the High Performance Center. Nutrition up above us, so our cafeteria, our kitchen. Up on this side is our academic support.
Okay.
And then we walk by it, and I'll show it to you after those guys are done over there. But we've got our medical offices inside, so physician offices, X-ray.
Oh wow.
And then some kind of regeneration stuff. So underwater treadmill on the corner, we walk right past that. Yeah. And so kind of everything's here.
Yeah.
So when they come in, they can get to their coaches, they can get to their meetings.
Right.
They can shower up, get treatment, get food, get their strength conditioning, and kind of find everybody in one spot. So
it's impressive.
What we're really looking, I think it could be valuable to our audience, is we got 19, 20-year-old watching this, and he thinks that he wants to be a strength coach. So there's a lot of steps between, kinesiology student and, head strength coach for a college football team, which is obviously all their aspirations. But what is maybe that process most typically looking like? What steps would you suggest they go through?
In the collegiate setting.
Yeah,
in the collegiate setting. So clearly you got to have your degree, right? So you want to get your education, and as part of that, working in your master's degree, getting in and getting involved in strength conditioning at the collegiate level. So finding some area for internship is great, and really getting your feet wet, learning the ins and outs of the collegiate setting, because it's a different setting than a professional setting. It's a different setting than the private setting, and it's different than just about any other spot you're going to do in the strength conditioning. So
rewinding real quick to the degree part of things. There's kinesiology, there's exercise science, there's we had a friend who was a exercise science professor at Temple University in Philadelphia, and he's now just all private stuff. But he talked about how so many of the programs are really directed more at like clinical settings and obesity research or elderly stuff. Like that's what they're teaching you in exercise science. Have you been able to see any programs, maybe interns and coaches that you get from here, where they were maybe educated a bit more on how to be coaches rather than how to be researchers?
Right. So there are different coaching programs that are out there. Believe it or not, locally here, Sac State does a hell of a job.
Really?
Yeah, they really do, and they've got a strength conditioning program there. And so those coaches come out and they've actually written strength conditioning programs and are familiar with the settings. Just having that level of insight, I think, is important. I think the older model where you'd go through your traditional education, your undergraduate degree, and even into your graduate work, where you're learning how to read research, you're learning about what's out there, and what to do with it. And even though it doesn't have direct application, you're learning how to seek out information. You're learning how to think the right way and learn. And I think it was put on all of us to go out and seek out the specific information in the settings that we wanted to work in. And strength conditioning in this setting, from the exercise prescription standpoint, may have a lot of similarities, but from a global, implementation, totally different.
Yeah.
You're 100,000 athletes, 30 teams, on a clock, 20-hour week, 8-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Limitations with supplementation, food, all these things are so different and unique to this environment. You're 1 on 20, 1 on 30 here, very, very different models. So I still think there's huge value in getting into those settings at some point and being able to apply what you learn. Clearly, looking at strength conditioning research, doing reports and academic work specific to your area is beneficial. But man, I'll tell you what, hey, learn how to get into a journal, learn how to read, learn how to learn how to gather that kind of information so you can continue to be a lifelong learner. That's I think the real value of that piece.
So when you have an intern here or a round of interns, what what makes a good intern? What are you guys really happy with, and characteristics that you're looking for?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. So we don't really necessarily look for someone who's got some, huge, background in strength and conditioning. We're certainly not looking for them to write programs for us, right? We want some background and experience, particularly in sport. So someone that's played sports, I think, has definitely got a background where they can come in and not be starstruck by looking at athletes as a general basis. We typically want to see them at least through their graduate work, and so, through their undergraduate work and starting their graduate work is a great place. We like to see them starting with their basic certifications, or at least knowing, prepping for them if they haven't taken them already. Just characteristics: hardworking, dedicated, willing to learn, wants to ask questions, and is an exercise nut. Right? They believe in training. They understand training. It's not uncommon for us to get people who have read a lot about training and love sports. Okay, and they can come in and they can cite research and tell you about the physiology, but they've never trained and they've never participated in sports. And so that transition is difficult.
And that's, I'd imagine, buy-in of the college athlete is going to be so important. And I remember my first week or two as a freshman here, being down at the track and looking up at the stadium stairs, and Blasquez is running, shirtless, running stadiums like fucking Rocky.
It's been like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I remember 14 years ago probably.
Okay.
And it's huge ass lats, and I'm 18 years old, and I'm like, who the fuck is that? And that's our strength coach? Like, that's the guy that's going to teach us how to lift? Like, yes, tell me everything that you know. Rather, if you just had someone coming in who's like, well, in this journal, we saw that there was a 1.8 standard deviations and all that. So, yeah, I think looking the part and walking the walk as well as talking the talk is certainly an important thing.
You got to have everything.
Yeah.
I think to be successful at a high level, particularly at the collegiate level, or even in the private sector, with higher level athletes, you squat 1,000 pounds, that gives you credibility from day one. Yeah. But then you better know what you're doing, right? Yeah. And you better understand why you're suggesting, a program, and why it works, and how to adjust it, and the science behind it. And you may not have to explain that all, at a high level, but you better understand it, and you better be able to put it in a terminology that someone else can understand so that they buy into it. Right. And so there's only so much that your initial walk in the door will get you. And then you better have some substance, right?
So typically after the internship, the next step is going to be a graduate assistant, normally?
Yeah, so, So we'd like to see GAs, and some universities have graduate assistants. We currently don't. But it's great if you can get someone into a graduate program in an exercise science degree of some kind, and they're dedicating some time to continue to learn. And then you can really give them some, of course, with certifications, you can give them some experience. Maybe assign a team to them, or have them assist with teams. Let them get their feet a little more wet with actually coaching athletes, working with athletes on a day-to-day basis. And they're there with you. So they go through it. They're not there for a snapshot, a month, or a few weeks, or a semester. They're going to spend a couple of years with you, and really get a chance to learn, be part of your staff, be heavily ingrained into the culture of the program. Understand different methods, understand how to apply those methods to those sports. All that becomes a huge part of that learning process.
So as they go from GA, and then they're a good GA, so they become just an assistant strength and conditioning coach. And this part, knowing people in this industry, and I think you probably had a bit of a unique introduction to it, coming from Coach Blasquez was the strength coach at De La Salle during the bulk of the streak, 151 game winning streak, and that was always a thing when the first time that I really got time to talk with you, because you weren't our track, you didn't oversee the throwers so much when I was in school, but I knew he worked at De La Salle, and that was like the be-all, end-all to me, so I came in and talked to you about that. And so you kind of went straight from De La Salle to Cal, but a more typical route for people is probably GA, and then assistant strength coach, and that is a nomadic life for these
man,
guys.
it really is.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Especially as a grad assistant and interns. I mean, it's uphill. And the crazy part about it, at the collegiate level, it's so impacted here.
Right.
I mean, interns are everywhere. Everybody's looking to get into it. So, a lot of competition, right? And then grad assistantships, huge competition to get a grad assistantship.
Right.
And then an entry level position, if we post, I got 200 applicants in 2 weeks for that spot. All qualified applicants.
Yeah.
We really fall back on talking to people that we know have worked with people that we're familiar with.
Right.
They've coached with so-and-so, or they worked under this, mentor, and or we've worked with them here and developed them ourselves. So it has a huge impact on whether we hire somebody.
Could you make an estimate at maybe how many different schools a coach would typically be at before landing like a head strength and conditioning job?
Oh yeah, I mean, and again, my pathway is very non-traditional. So like you said, coming from high school and coming here in the head position, 5 or 6, 7 is not atypical. And you think about the traditional sport coaches, right? Particularly in football, which tends to be the model for all sports. And there are universities that are non-football universities, but most of the football schools, you see this traditionally is coaches, and they're there for 3 to 5 years, and then they move to the next thing, right? And the strength coach is a nomad in the same way, as you say, and they're going to be bouncing around and going to several different universities, so very typical.
Yeah, I think it's got to be, if that is an industry that, or a job that you want to go for, and this is actually a lot of the reason why I never pursued coaching in college, is that I see these guys go, all right, 9 months they're at, La Tech, and then for 13 months they're at Texas Tech, and then then they're up at Northeastern University for a year and a half, and then at this other place for 6 months or 2 years, and you got to be willing to, off the bat, take some really low paying jobs where you work really long hours, to move all the time. So like if you have a family or something that makes it that much harder, but I think that's got to be a realistic an expectation that people have getting into this, that it's yours is the unique story of high school head coach to college head strength coach, and you've been here for your entire career.
Right.
But where most of these guys are bouncing around all over the place, so they got to know that they got to be ready for that.
They got to be ready for that, and they got to be ready for the hours. They got to be ready for the grind of a collegiate setting, and that is basically year-round, from 5 a.m. till whenever, strength conditioning is going to be happening. So you're going to need to be present, and so that's a tough lifestyle. You have to understand it. You have to embrace it. And if that piece is not for you, then all the other qualifications that are there really are meaningless because you're just never going to be able to tolerate the workloads and the stress of the day-to-day.
So besides this work ethic, and obviously a good strength coach has to understand principles of programming and how to coach technique of the exercises. What is a trait beyond that you think really contributes to someone being a successful strength coach?
Oh yeah. I'd say all those things for sure, but someone understands what it means to be part of something bigger than themselves. Part of a team, part of something. You got to understand that you're a component to something, a contributing factor to a larger group with a larger outcome, a larger goal. And I think folks that get that piece and they can come in and they understand it's not about themselves, and it's not about necessarily getting an individual better. It's about taking a group and helping them to get from point A to point B, and being having that burning desire to be a critical piece of that puzzle that helps that process to move. I think that trait, that quality, is huge. Because you get a lot of coaches who get into it and they're in it for they want to be the guy, or they love teaching lifts, or there's something other than that. You're part of a team, right? You're going to bring something to the table there, and you embrace your role there, and see the importance of that and being an educator through that process. I think that's a huge quality to have.